I am Mike Gibbons. I work at the Babe Ruth Museum in Baltimore, and this is part of our special speakers series. A couple of months ago, we did an interview with the legendary manager Joe Madden. Talk with him, and I find it kind of curious. But I asked Joe something I'm going to ask our guest tonight. What do you think of the rule changes? Especially with the shift being taken away, and I had forgotten that Joe Madden invented the shift. So he was really very pro shift, and it kind of caught me off guard. And I hope I'll do that with our guest this evening. But our guest this evening is a legendary guy in his own right. He is a native son Marylander. He set all kind of records in his Major League Baseball career. Three-time All-Star, 5 Gold Gloves, three Silver Sluggers, and he was the fifth switch hitter to hit 400 or more home runs. We met back in the fall of 2019 when Mark Teixeira was being voted in or inducted into the Maryland State Athletic Hall of Fame. And I went to interview him at his Connecticut home, and he was most gracious. And so we got to started a little bit of a relationship, and we do thank Mark for joining us this evening. Aside from the fact that he was a hell of a baseball player, as you're going to find out this evening, and or as you already know, but he has connections to Babe Ruth. Yes, he is a native son Marylander, just like Babe Ruth. He went to a local Catholic school, just like Babe Ruth, and of course, he ended up being a quintessential slugger with the New York Yankees, just like Babe Ruth. So we're going to get into that a little bit this evening and ask Mark about that Ruthian connection that he has and whether it has made an impression on him in his baseball career. Now, the way that I want to do this evening's interview is I want to start off by taking you through Mark's upbringing in Maryland, his high school career, college career, pro career, and then what has he done after baseball, in terms of his family and in terms of his broadcast career, some charitable work and things like that. But I want to get going, and then we will get to and asking him about the rule changes in 2023. Ask him about the Yankees, how he thinks they're doing. They seem to be coming back to life despite a spate of injuries. And then about his hometown team, the Baltimore Orioles, who I think have shocked the baseball world with just how impressive they have been. I want to get his take on all of that, and then we will open it up for Q&A for about the last 15 to 20 minutes of the program. So a lot to get through. And Mark, welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Great to be here, Mike, and to be with all of you.
So, trying to stick with my outline, and my head is going to shift over to the side here because I have all these program notes. But maybe we can just start off with the fact that you were born in Annapolis, Maryland, on April 11, 1980. And by the way, that's my birthday, although I think I'm going to, I have the career years over you at this point, but I hope you eventually surpass me and live to be 110 years old. But anyway, so April 11. And so you grew up locally. But you ended up at Mount St. Joe's High School. Tell us, how did that happen?
So, growing up in Smyrna Park, Maryland, I played baseball all through the Green Hornets program and Smyrna Park Legion ball. We had a great Legion program at Smyrna Park, and really enjoyed playing my amateur baseball and playing baseball just in general in Smyrna Park. But that being said, I really liked the idea of the Catholic education, and at the time, Mount St. Joe, and still to this day, Mount St. Joe, had great athletics, great academics, a really good community. And I knew some guys in Smyrna Park that had gone to Mount St. Joe, some of my buddies' older brothers, and everyone raved about the education and about the athletics. And it was a great decision. I loved my 4 years at Mount St. Joe.
Who introduced you to baseball? Was it your dad?
My dad was, I tell people, He was my number one coach as a kid and my number one fan as an adult. And so my dad, he played baseball at the Naval Academy. That's why we grew up in Annapolis. After his time in the Navy, he just loved the Annapolis area, and he wanted to come back and live there and raise a family in Annapolis. So, he was a good baseball player. My mom's side of the family had tons of great baseball players. I have a bunch of great uncles that played in the minor leagues, and none of them made it to the big leagues, but some good pedigree there. So both sides of my family were really into baseball, and they all taught me how to play the game.
So, would that be the reason that you were persuaded or knew early on that you wanted to pursue a career in baseball, is because of all the family stuff that was going on?
Well, that's part of it. Yeah, I tell people, Mike, I didn't choose to play professional baseball. Baseball chose me.
Oh,
If if every kid with a dream to play pro ball, got to be able to live out that dream, we'd have 1,000 teams in the major leagues, right? So, I obviously wanted to play pro baseball. I loved playing basketball. I loved soccer. I played tennis as a kid. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to have a ball in my hand. I wanted to play. And as I got older, it became very clear to me that God gave me the ability to hit a baseball. And I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the strongest, but man, could I hit? And so, I laugh when I say it, but baseball chose me, and I just kept playing it until it became my career.
so let's go back to St. Joe. You go to St. Joe. Early on, as a freshman, a sophomore, whatever, were you did you have any notion that of Babe Ruth's impact on that school, and the fact that he had played a couple of games over at St. Joe? Did you guys know about that?
Absolutely. The baseball coaches, when I was on my eighth grade visit, you know how it works with private schools. When you're in eighth grade, you got to go take a visit, and you got to dress up and walk around with another student. You shadow another student, and on my visit there, people are asking me, and I got introduced to the baseball coaches, and hey, did you know that Babe Ruth played at this ballpark? And they're kind of looking out the window. Yeah, he played right there. So it was absolutely something that I remember as a eighth grader, remembering that Babe Ruth played there. And then obviously when you step onto that field, and it's not doesn't exactly look like that nowadays, but when you step onto that field, knowing that Babe Ruth played there, as a high schooler, that was just so neat.
Well, we're looking at an image now from an exhibition game. Ruth played two at Mount St. Joe's, and this I think is from 1914. So Ruth, actually, one of the reasons that he was able to sign a professional contract is that in 1913, St. Mary's Industrial School, where Babe Ruth went, uh, played an exhibition game against Mount St. Joe's at St. Mary's Industrial School, and it was Babe Ruth pitching against St. Joe's Billy Morissette. Um, and Jack Dunn, the owner of the Orioles, manager of the Orioles, had heard about this coming game, and he attended. And Ruth beat Morissette in that game, and that led Jack Dunn to sign him to his first pro contract in February of 1914. After the 1914 season, you see Ruth comes home after the season, and now he is an established major leaguer, and he plays in an exhibition game, Catonsville versus Irvington. And here you see him on the mound pitching against Fritz Mazel's Catonsville team. Ruth played for Irvington, and it drew thousands. Katie, if you can pull it out, thousands of spectators lined the field. Now, Mark, that when you played at St. Joe, that is the home plate is your left field, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so, your home plate was all the way over on the left side of this picture. But they're correct. It is the field. It's where Babe
Yes,
Ruth played, and it's where Teixeira played. It's cool. It's very cool.
absolutely. And left field at St. Joe currently is a little bit shorter because of those trees. There's a creek back there as well. And so those trees, that's kind of where you want to make sure you hit a couple balls into the trees and in batting practice, get yourself good and loose for the game.
Oh, that's very cool. So, you had a pretty heralded teammate, Gavin Floyd, playing with you at St. Joe. who went on to the major leagues and a nice career and all that good stuff. So how did you guys do at St. Joe? Any titles or anything?
Well, unfortunately, Gavin was a freshman when I was a senior, so we didn't play on the same team
Oh,
together.
okay, okay.
There's a rule at St. Joe, and I think it's a good rule: no freshmen on varsity. And I'm not sure if it's still the rule today, but I didn't play varsity my freshman year, and Gavin he was dominating JV. He was pitching really well in JV, but his older brother Michael and I were seniors that year on varsity, and I believe we lost to Calvert Hall in the MIA finals that year. But we always had good teams. I remember my sophomore year, we had 6 or 7 guys that went on and played college ball. Not all D1, but went on to play college baseball. So
Wow.
we had some really good teams my 3 years on varsity at St. Joe.
Yeah, I mean, and as you alluded to earlier, St. Joe traditionally has fielded strong teams all the way back to Billy Morissette, in 1913. And Morissette, by the way, went on to a major league career as well. So, a tremendous legacy and tradition at Mount St. Joe's. And so when you're getting out of there, you are drafted in the 9th round of the 98 draft by the Boston Red Sox, but you opted to attend Georgia Tech. What happened there? What was all
So
that about?
I was projected to go in the first round, anywhere between the 9th and 15th pick, and I was all ready to kind of start my pro career, and I'd signed with Georgia Tech. But my dad and I talked about, hey, listen, if I'm a first rounder, then that's probably something we should do, and let's start the pro career. But there was a rumor going around that I wasn't gonna sign. I was going to go to college, and the Boston Red Sox called me the couple days before the draft and asked if I could do a pre-draft deal just so they could guarantee to sign me. And I said, no, I wouldn't do that. Draft me and we'll talk about it. Well, they told everyone in baseball that I wasn't going to sign. So I slipped 9 full rounds. So I went from being a mid-first rounder to slipping 9 rounds. And of course, who drafts me? The Boston Red Sox, because no one else was going to draft me. And I told them on that day, I said, I know what happened, and I'm not signing with you. So called my coach at Georgia Tech, was super excited about that. But it actually was the best thing for me. I mean, sometimes my heart was broken as a kid, as an 18-year-old kid, and you're supposed to be a first-round draft pick, and you don't get drafted for the 9th round. I mean, that was tough to take. That being said, I learned the business of baseball, and that really sharpened me for my career, understanding that these teams, they don't really care about you. They care about what you can do for them. And so that was the first thing. But the second thing, it allowed me to go to college. And I had the 3 best years of my life at Georgia Tech, and met my wife and had a ton of success there, and made lifelong friends, and still extremely involved at Georgia Tech. So while it was a really tough day, that draft day back in 1998, it ended up being one of the best things for me in my career.
So as you were on your way to Georgia Tech, you played summer ball in '99 in the Cape Cod League, and you won the league's Outstanding Pro Prospect Award. Was the level of talent as good as the league's reputation that we all know about? Was it a cool thing?
Absolutely. My freshman year, I don't want to say freshman year was easy, because it wasn't easy, but with an aluminum bat, and you're playing plenty of teams that you can beat up on a little bit, you can pad your stats. When you go to Cape Cod, there's no one you can pad your stats against, and you're using wood bats. So you've got to learn how to hit the sweet spot of that bat. So that was one of the best summers for my development. I got up in the morning, I worked out for an hour or two. I went early to the ballpark, took extra BP, took some extra ground balls, whatever it might be, and then played games. And we played 6 games a week, and we had an absolute blast. Had a really good team at Orleans. Again, met some lifelong friends. Just had a really good summer in Cape Cod.
Any big names play that summer with you?
So one of the Lance Necro, whose father was Joe, and Uncle Phil, obviously the legendary knuckleballers. Lance made the big leagues with the Giants, and we were both third basemen. And we get to Cape Cod, and the manager says, "Well, we got good news and bad news. The good news is we've got 2 really good third basemen. The bad news is we don't have one first baseman. So one of you is going to have to go back and forth." So Lance and I, it actually worked out really well where every other game we would just switch back between first and third. And in the big leagues, we both ended up playing a little bit of first base, which really helped us. So I think again, one of those things where you don't necessarily plan for it, but it worked out in the end, getting some experience at first base.
You talked about the work regimen that you started to learn at Cape Cod and stuff like that, and I've had so many major leaguers tell me that the big difference between guys who make it and then the billions of kids who grow up wanting to do it but don't, it's because they never were able to apply themselves the way that professionals do. And you really have to go at it every day, don't you?
No doubt, and yeah, I think there's three things. If you would say, what does it take to become a major league baseball player? And number one is God-given talent. If you don't have God-given talent, the other two don't matter at all. So God-given talent, the ability to hit a baseball, to be fast and strong, and be able to physically make it on the field is number one. Number two is you need to love playing the game of baseball, because if you don't love it, you're not going to have the drive to be good. If you don't love it, you're not going to have the drive to work hard at it. And so there's the talent, there's the love, and then there's the work ethic. I think if you're missing the first one, it ain't going to work. But if you're missing one of the next two, if you're missing the love for the game or the work ethic to put in the hours, it's not going to happen for you. And so I try to tell all of the young kids, it's like, okay, if you really want to progress in this game, you better learn how to love to work. You learn to love the pain of sore backs and sore hands and love double headers and love playing on the road and 12-hour bus rides in the minor leagues, because that's what it's going to take to be great.
Absolutely. Well, that's a very good answer, and thank you for that. Your college career, let's just talk about 2000. You received the Dick Hauser Award as the best collegiate player. You must have been off the charts. How did you see that coming? I mean, what was that like? It's amazing.
It's one of my proudest accomplishments. The trophy's actually right behind me up here on my mantle.
Oh,
It's one of the ones that I hold very near and dear to my heart. It's the Heisman Trophy of college baseball. And so, my sophomore year, I was kind of in a zone all year, and it's one of those things. And, I knew when I started dominating college baseball my sophomore year, I said, okay, I figured it out. I finally figured this game out. And it was after my freshman year where I had a really good year and was National Freshman of the Year, went to Cape Cod and kind of learned how to hit with a wood bat. But then my sophomore year, I took that jump and started dominating at the collegiate level and just had a blast. It was just, a magical year for me, magical year for the team. We won the ACC championship that year, had a really good season, ranked number one for part of the year. And 2000 is definitely a year I'll remember.
I was chatting with Tex before we went on the air here today that trying to do his life, his career in 40 minutes or whatever is a difficult thing. So we may be fast forwarding. We can't do every year, every play. I mean, because we could be here forever, because what a career you have had. But so let's go to the 2001 draft. So you decide to re-enter. I mean, you've just been on top of the collegiate world, so you get back into the draft. Take us and you sign a contract. You're the fifth overall drafted by the Rangers that season for $9.5 million over 4 years. Tell us about that experience.
A really special day for my family and I. My girlfriend at the time, wife now, drove up from Georgia to be with me and my family for the draft. And at those days, you're wasn't on MLB Network, wasn't covered by ESPN, and you sat in front of your computer and you heard like a very weak, kind of dial-up internet, listening to the picks come in. And I had a pretty good idea that the Rangers weren't going to take me, but when you actually hear your name and then you see it on the screen, we went wild at my house and threw a big party. All my friends came over, a bunch of family came over that evening, and at the time it's like it's a culmination of a lot of hard work, but I hadn't made it. It was a really nice stair step of my career, but it was kind of one of those things I could enjoy for a few days, and then it was time to get to work because, getting drafted is one thing. Plenty of players get drafted. Making it to the big leagues and having a sustained career is something else.
So, and from this point on, folks, the man that we're visiting with this evening, this career is astonishing. So let's just walk through a little bit of this. You go into the minor leagues, you soar all the way through the Rangers minor league system in 2002, and you make their opening day roster in 2003. That year, folks, you bat 259. It's not terrific, but it ain't bad. If you look, we watch a lot of the Orioles, the young Orioles today, and they're not, they're not hitting 300 or 280 for the most part. So first year 259 with 26 homers, but then the next year off you go. You hit 281, 38 homers, 112 RBIs in 2004. You had made the adjustment to the major league caliber talent. What was the adjustment period like for you?
I actually just told a minor leaguer this 2 days ago. I'd love to try to, give some sort of wisdom or pass on something to the next generation. I said, guys, it's not about learning how to succeed. I knew how to succeed. I had 26 homers my rookie year, and I had some RBIs and had some big games. It's succeeding more consistently. My sophomore year, my second year in the big leagues, I learned how to succeed more consistently. I had less up and downs. I mean, I was always a streaky player. I had less of them, right? And so to win a Silver Slugger my second year, to be considered the best offensive first baseman in the American League, I couldn't really believe it, but it was just putting my head down, understanding what I was good at, and trying to just consistently produce and put up good at bats every single night. And even if I was 0 for 3, that at bat in the ninth inning when we're down by a couple runs, the team still needs me. Like I'm gonna get that base hit, or I'm gonna hit that home run. You don't give away at bats, and that's what I learned my second year is how to be a consistent major leaguer.
So here we go, folks. I'm in a trap right now because the next year, 2005, this is your career year. You hit 43 homers, 144 RBIs. I want you to think about that, folks. Plus Silver Slugger and Gold Glove. Plus he made the All-Star team that year, and it was your first year as a starting member of that AL All-Star team. What a year! What was that all about?
A little bit like that 2000 season at Georgia Tech. Nothing really went wrong. It was a great season. Yeah, I had a couple maybe dips here and there, but man, I just felt like I was on a hot streak all year long. I hit a home run in the All-Star game, and that was one of those moments. There's been a few moments in my career where, as I'm rounding the bases and hitting a home run, still, it's the only thing I miss about playing baseball is I miss hitting home runs. But as I was running around the bases, I talked to myself and I said, "Wow, I just hit a home run in the All-Star game." And that whole season, the RBIs, and I was always a guy that you really prided myself on driving in runs. When you hit 3, 4, 5, middle of that order, you've got to drive in runs. That's the name of the game. And analytics might tell you nowadays, oh well, RBIs aren't important, but pretty sure runs scored are important. I'm pretty sure that if you score more runs than the other team, your team wins. So 2005 was kind of another step up year. And after 2005, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, where can you take it? Where can you take it?" And I'm like, "Hey guys, I was in a cloud all season. Let me just try to keep this going." And it was the second year of 8 consecutive 30 home run and 100 RBI seasons. And to me, that was the mark of a power hitter. And I was obviously a power hitter, first baseman. The mark is 30 and 100. If you can get to 30 and 100 every year, you've done your job. And that year, going 43 and 144, it's almost like I set the bar too high. I set the bar too high for myself and other people, the media and teammates, because I knew it was going to be tough to replicate. But man, I enjoyed it during that season.
I'll bet you did. Another hallmark of that season was that you became only the third big leaguer to blast at least 20 home runs in each of your first three seasons, joining Oriole Eddie Murray and Chipper Jones. Did you follow Eddie as you were coming along here when he was with the Orioles?
Eddie Murray's why I'm a switch hitter. I
Yeah.
absolutely loved Eddie Murray. And listen, Cal is my man. I love Cal Ripken. Who doesn't love Cal Ripken? But just growing up, for some reason, I was drawn to Eddie. And so I can remember being a little kid, 4, 5, 6 years old, watching Oriole games and, seeing Eddie hit home runs from both sides of the plate. And I said, I want to do that. So as a kid in my backyard, playing wiffle ball, I'd, switch around, hit left-handed. And obviously I had the ability to hit right-handed. And so I had maybe some time and had a little bit of leeway to be able to hit left-handed growing up, but coaches would let me hit left-handed, and I just knew, man, if I could be like Eddie Murray, if I could be a power hitting switch hitter, it's a very rare thing in Major League Baseball, and so, man, Eddie is my guy. I love Eddie Murray's his career and what he did for the Orioles, just super special.
Yeah, and you are one of five switch hitters like Eddie. I guess Mickey Mantle would be another with 400 or more home runs. So that hats off to you, kid. Really great
Thank you.
job. So in 2007, Texas trades you to Atlanta 2 weeks after you turned down a contract extension with the Rangers for it was an 8-year, $140 million extension. Not Lamar Jackson numbers, but for back in the day, that wasn't a bad deal. But you didn't do that, but you held out and you played through that season with the Braves, and then you went over to the Angels, and then you declared for free agency in that off season. So, and Baltimore, we all thought, we were praying you're going to come home and save the Orioles, who are in the midst of a 14-game losing streak. What made you go to the Yankees?
Well, contrary to popular belief, the Orioles never made me a real offer. So,
Oh,
it was something I think they had to come and say hello, but at that time, if you remember, in 2008, 2009, the Orioles were not very good. Weren't spending a lot of money at all, and so they never even made me an offer. But
okay.
that being said, I wanted to go play somewhere where I had a chance to win consistently. And I did want to stay on the East Coast because of my family. My parents were still living in Baltimore. My sister was actually in New York at the time. My wife's family was all in Georgia, and so staying on the East Coast was important. I had a blast playing in LA for the Angels. I tell you, 72 and sunny every day. You're close to the beach. What a wonderful place to play. I mean, Shohei Ohtani's gonna have a tough time leaving the Angels because of how great it is playing in Anaheim. But so when the Yankees came and said, this is our last final offer, it was a great offer. I knew I probably could have gone back to other teams, but I told my agent, that's enough. I'm going to put on the pinstripes. I grew up a Mattingly fan as well. So if you ask me who my favorite players growing up, they were Cal Ripken, Eddie Murray, Will Clark, left-handed
Wow.
hitter for the San Francisco Giants and Texas Rangers. Love Will Clark. But Mattingly was probably my number one guy. And
Wow.
so being a Don Mattingly fan, to be able to go back into Yankee Stadium, wear the pinstripes, and play first base like the guy that you grew up loving, that was something I couldn't turn down.
So you signed an 8-year deal, 180 million. Now that's more Lamar Jackson kind of. You're getting up there now. That's pretty good. So there you go into Yankee Stadium. So let's go back to the Babe Ruth connection again. You become a Yankee. You put on the pinstripes. What kind of a legacy does Ruth have there? Or did he have there as you came into New York?
I'll argue, and I'm not just telling you this because you could probably go to 100 articles where I've said this. Babe Ruth is the greatest player in the history of baseball. And so the first time I ever went to Yankee Stadium, it was 2003. I was, rookie season, playing with the Texas Rangers, and the cab dropped it. Actually, it wasn't a cab. I think we took the subway, and where it dropped us off, kind of center field. And we had our player passes, and someone opened up the gate, let us in the stadium. And we go through, and Monument Park is right there. And when you go into Monument Park, there's monuments, and then there are monuments. And Ruth has one of the monuments. You get chills when you walk into Monument Park for the first time and you see Babe Ruth's plaque. You get chills. And so to fast forward 6 years and be a home player wearing those pinstripes, it's still the same feeling. I mean, Babe Ruth cast such a huge shadow over Major League Baseball. I mean, the house that Ruth built is real. I hit a grand slam in my final game, my final at bat at the old Yankee Stadium. I hit a grand slam as a member of the Angels. And just thinking about how many home runs Babe Ruth hit in that stadium, and probably to the exact same place where I hit mine kind of, straight away right field on a hanging changeup. And just thinking about how many balls Ruth hit into those bleachers, just brings so many cool emotions as a kid that grew up in Baltimore and understanding what Babe Ruth meant to not only Maryland but the New York Yankees.
Absolutely. So in 2009, you get the ring, you win the World Series, you have a terrific year. You do the Silver Slugger and Gold Glove, which is astonishing to me that you did that twice. Am I right about that? Right, two times.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, best offensive and defensive first baseman in the American League two times, and that's just astonishing to me. But you were good enough that year to finish second in the MVP voting to Joe Mauer, not a bad ball player in his own right, and you get that World Series ring. So what was that like?
Complete whirlwind. When you're a first year player at the Yankees and you walk into that clubhouse with Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Andy Pettitte, Jorge Posada, Alex Rodriguez. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's humbling. It really is humbling. And it was actually a good thing for me in my career. I could just be one of the guys. I didn't have to be the guy. I could just do my part. On a night where maybe I didn't hit a home run or didn't drive in any runs, I can make a couple nice plays at first place, pick up or first base, pick up my teammates. I really enjoyed that season. And the first year at a brand new stadium too. Remember, the new Yankee Stadium opened in 2009. And to be able to christen that stadium with a World Series ring. The boss was still alive. George Steinbrenner passed away in 2010, so he was still alive. He got to enjoy that World Series, and it's the last one for the Yankees. It's been quite a drought now for the Yankees since 2009, but I'll always have very fond memories of that season.
Outstanding. So 2010, 2011, you guys get to the playoffs, but you get knocked out by Boston in 10 and by Detroit in 11.
By Texas in 10, yep.
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah, so we actually never played Boston in the playoffs, which was just weird because we were both pretty good for the 8 years that I was there, but we never faced each other in the playoffs.
Huh. What happened to the Yankees? I mean, did you guys just kind of falter in those postseason appearances, or what was going on?
I think there's three things. Number one, you've got to be incredibly lucky, and you got to get hot during to win a World Series. And we were probably neither lucky or hot during 2010 and 11 and 12. Number two, we were getting old. We were even in 2009. If you read some of the preseason pundits, which there are a ton in New York, we were an older team. Yeah, we were super talented. Don't get me wrong, but we were getting old even in 2009, and I think our age showed in the next few years. And I think the third thing is it's extremely hard to win a World Series. It's not easy, and to think I played 14 years in the big leagues. To get one, I'm just holding on to that one because there are some of the greatest players of my generation. You never won a World Series. Barry Bonds never won a World Series. Ken Griffey Jr. never won a World Series. And the list goes on and on, but those two names, arguably two of the top 10 players in Major League history. Mm-hmm. So I don't take for granted the one that I got, and I really appreciate it.
I've chatted. A lot of folks were aware that we were going to be chatting this evening. And I asked them, like sports writers, local guys, if they agreed with me that Mark Teixeira was on a Hall of Fame career track, um, and they were all like, "Yeah, there's no question." But the last 5 years of your career, injury bug. I mean, that God, it must have been so frustrating to you. And then so from 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, you were knocked around, and then you retired. So what was that like to end your career that way?
You know what? I was obviously very disappointing at the time, but it taught me so much about myself. I mean, I had a pretty stress-free career for for 9 years really, and had a 9-year run where not much went wrong. 2012, I tore my calf and like bad. Tried to come back, tore it again, and so I ended up missing. I think I missed 30 games maybe in 2012. I'm not. You probably have the stats in front of you. I missed a bunch of time in 2012. 2013, I tear a ligament in my wrist. Missed pretty much the entire season.
Mm.
2013. 2014, I come back and it just wasn't quite right. My body just wasn't quite right. I In 2015, I come back in 2015 and make an all-star team. I changed up my workout routine, tried to, basically I went from, all right, I need to be a great baseball player to I just need to be on the field. And so I really took care of my diet, took care of my body, and just wanted to stay on the field. And it worked out to the point where had a great season, was probably an MVP candidate until I broke my leg at the end of 2015. And so I ended up missing a month in 2015 as well. And then 2016, after everything I just added up, bad knees, bad neck, all these other things, I was like, I'm done. That being said, I don't ever want people to remember me as just a baseball player. And if I would have been a Hall of Famer, it would have been amazing. But I'm sure I would have still been Mark Teixeira, the baseball player, for the rest of my life. This allows me to chart a different path a little bit. Would I have wanted to stay healthy? Absolutely, but that wasn't in God's plan. There are certain things that you can control and certain things you can't. And in God's plan, me playing until I was 40 years old, and like Cal and Eddie, right? Those Cal and Eddie, Cal obviously blessed with extreme health their entire careers, and had 20-year careers. Was it in the cards for me? And I think it's a different time nowadays too. It's injuries are they're all over baseball, and so I can look at it one of two ways. I can complain that the last couple of years of my career I was hurt a lot, or I can be grateful for the healthy years that I had. And that's the way that I choose to look at it. If I complain about my career, then I'm not giving credit to what was accomplished, and I'm probably insulting people that didn't make it. I played minor league ball and played majors with guys that got a cup of coffee. Didn't have the career that I had. For me to complain about some injuries would probably be insulting to them.
So, so you retired after 2016. We're 7 years beyond that now. You and your wife Lee and your children, Jack, Gordon, and Addison. You're in Greenwich, Connecticut, and I've been to your home. It's a lovely home. You've worked with ESPN. Actually, they put a studio in your place for you
Yeah.
up there. That's
Well,
where
I
we
live in
told you.
Austin now. I live in Austin, Texas now. I moved
Oh,
moved
you're
2 years ago. Yep.
oh my gosh.
Yep. So
Well, so what is going on with you today? What are you up to?
So the day that I announced my retirement, ESPN emailed me and said, we'd like to have you in for an interview. We want you to be on Baseball Tonight and do playoff and World Series coverage next year. And I said, well, that might be kind of fun. So for 4 years, when I was living up in Connecticut, I had the coolest transition from being a baseball player, 14-year major league career, to being a regular person. And I didn't totally turn off that baseball part of my life. I got to work at ESPN. I got to go to All-Star games and World Series and cover the playoffs. It was a blast. But more importantly, I got to spend more time with my wife and 3 kids. I mean, my children missed a whole bunch of, or I missed a whole bunch of their lives during my career. And I want to say, so when I retired, my kids would have been 10, 8, and 6, I believe. And so, they got to see me play. I tell my boys, you've gotten to take batting practice at Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium. Not a lot of kids get to say that.
Right.
Really neat experiences for them. They got to be on the field during an all-star game. So really cool things that my kids got to do. But now I get to go to their games. Now I get to be a chaperone on their field trips. Now I don't miss choir recitals or whatever it might be. And so being able to just to be a dad, be a regular person, it's been really nice the last couple of years. And I'm just an extremely blessed man.
So I read that you are a movie buff. Give me your top 5 movies all time.
Okay,
Sure.
I'll give you genres. So a baseball movie, Bull Durham. I'll give you action movie, Top Gun. I'll give you drama, The Godfather, Part Two. Part Two, I think they're both. Or the first 2 are both great, but I'm partial to Part Two. Then we'll go comedy. Wedding Crashers probably for comedy. And then I'll throw in another one. I'll throw in Caddyshack. I'm a big golfer now. I love playing golf, and Caddyshack is just a great movie. So those are top 5 for me.
That's cool. And then I also understand that you love Broadway, and as do my wife and I. We're big Broadway. Love to go to the theater. Les Mis is that your favorite?
I know the entire score. I can sing. Not exactly well, but I can sing every word to Les Mis. And every now and then on Sunday morning after church, I'll throw it on in the house, and my kids, they put their earphones in, or they go to another part of the house and let me do my thing.
So the Baltimore Ravens kicker, Justin Tucker, do you know about him? He's an operatic
No,
voice. Oh my
wow.
God. Check out
And
Justin
and
Tucker.
and just happens to be the greatest kicker of all time.
And you got that going for as well. So listen, thank you. This has been great. And Katie, I think that Mark, if you can take a few questions from the audience,
Of
we're ready
course.
to go. And then I'll come back and close it out. Katie?
Yeah, if we have any questions from the audience, you can unmute and turn your video on. And actually, I have a question while we're getting settled here. I just love the way that you talk about the game, and it's just very clear how much you love it, just love the game of baseball, and it's really, really cool to hear. Is there anything in your life as a regular person now that gives you that home run feeling?
That's a great question. The competitor in me, I love to play golf, and when you flush not like a wedge, not something short, not making a long putt, whatever, but when you hit a 250-yard 3-wood and you hit it onto the green, and you get to a par 5 and 2, that feeling is the closest thing to a home run. And it doesn't happen all the time, just like I didn't hit a home run in every game, but every couple rounds, I'll hit just one of those perfect shots from 250 yards out. And you walk up to the green. Walking up to the green when you've hit a shot like that is kind of like rounding the bases. You get to soak it in. So that's the closest thing that I could probably say from baseball to my life nowadays. Everything else from a family perspective is it's a different type of meaning. It's a deeper meaning. It's just more loving and more spiritual. But as a competitor, I like playing golf.
Thank you. Good answer. All right, Chris, if you'd like to go ahead and ask your question first.
Oh, me? Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Can Mark hear me?
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Mark. I'm Chris, St. Joe grad, 2003. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
First, congratulations with your astonishing career, obviously.
Thank you.
When I heard about this, it was a no-brainer when it first came about that you were doing this virtual speaker series. And I hope your family's doing well, and appreciate your openness to help people, and with Christianity and stuff like that, and everything you did off the field. A lot like Cal did. and Adam Jones did when he was playing. I want to ask you, you know, myself, I'm 38. I was there when Gavin was there at St. Joe. We used to work out together
Cool.
in the Glen Burnie area at the Bat Club, which I don't think is around anymore. But he'd be in there hitting frozen ropes, you know, the pitcher he was, and you know, stud that he is. And I'd be switching in and out with him. It's hilarious. We were trying to do like this, you know, hitting competition type of thing. But I ended up playing through college, and that was that, and then got into strength and conditioning, and one thing led to another. Um, with your faith and family niche and upbringing that we both share, what would you recommend to me, Mark? Going through tough times that I am. One being my father has Alzheimer's, and he's a graduate of 71. He was good friends with Coach Norton. And Mom and I are having a hard time, and I was actually choking up on the ride home last night from visiting their house. And, you know, the fact that this is all happening now with this virtual speaker, that you're doing this is not a coincidence. In the hardest of times, you know, with my dad and other things my fiance and I are going through. So, you know, I've always been one to work hard. You know the St. Joe values, hard work, you know, perseverance and all that good stuff. See me wearing my gear.
Yeah. So
Um,
Chris, what I would tell you, man, when you're going through hard times, you know, God gives us hard times to make us stronger. That's really the only way to make us stronger. When things are going good, we tend to not rely on God. And so, you know, he's given you these things right now. He's allowing things to happen in your life, and it's going to make you a stronger man, a stronger, you know, future husband, a stronger son. And, you know, the second part of that is this isn't our home. You know, this is not where we're going to end up. We're going to end up in a much better place as Christian men, and we're going to be in heaven someday. And you're being prepared. Your father's being prepared for heaven, and that's where you should get your peace and your comfort, knowing that this isn't his home. His home's in heaven, and so he's being prepared for that right now. You're being prepared for a better place, and everything that you're going through is going to make you a stronger man.
well, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. And I have one more quick question. I do have a couple of your jerseys at my parents' house that I keep, that I've got framed. I've got a 2009 Yankees, your first year, from spring training. I've got one from Texas. I got one from Atlanta, but it's not signed. So maybe there's something I can work out with you to maybe
Why,
ink it
why,
up.
why don't you talk to Mike, and we'll get to some more questions.
Yeah, yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you. I
Chris.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great talking to you, man.
Yeah, same to you. Thank you for your time.
All righty.
Okay, William, go ahead.
Thanks so much. Mark, I was wondering if you could tell me, talk a little bit more about switch hitting. Is it contagious, right? If you're going bad from one side of the plate, can it influence you going bad on the other side? And could, you know, when you get hot and locked in on one side, does that translate over? I guess I'm also curious, like when you have teammates who are switch hitters, do you guys have like a, you know, a special kind of a bond or emotional support group because what you're going through is different than
Absolutely. I'll answer your second question first. Absolutely. I loved having other switch hitters on my team. I got to play with Chipper Jones, who was, you know, one of the greatest switch hitters of all time. You know, in my ranking, it's Mickey Mantle and then Chipper Jones, kind of 1-2. But you know, that support, understanding how it's so different. I mean, my two swings, left-handed and right-handed, were completely different. And so when I was really, really hot, yes, there was a correlation. When I was really, really cold, yes, there was a correlation. But for 80-90% of the season, it didn't matter one way or another. You know, if I was hitting left-handed early in a game and I got a couple hits, I wanted to stay hitting left-handed because, you know, late in the game, they might, you know, bring in a lefty to switch me around, And I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't feel right. I don't feel right in the box. So I'd probably say 80-90% of the season there was very little to no correlation. But the extremes, absolutely. When you're really, really confident, or when you had zero confidence, they definitely correlate.
Andy, sorry I was so late.
No, you're good.
No, you, Mark, you are obviously are a great hero here, but there was another guy, and a gentleman a few minutes ago mentioned him. There's another guy from St. Joe, in Gavin Floyd. Can you give us a little perspective on him?
Yeah, so Gavin's brother Michael and I were really good friends growing up. Still good friends. Still talk to this day. I see Michael once or twice a year. And at about probably 6th or 7th grade, you see Gavin shoot up, and you see him all of a sudden. I mean, I believe he was 6'5", by the time he stopped growing. But Michael's talking, hey, Gavin can throw. Gavin's got some good life on his fastball. So as he got older, I didn't get a front row seat, but I got to see, this little kid mature. We grew up together from, for 10 years, really. So I got to see him for a long time, really grow into a heck of a major league pitcher. And I got to face him a few times. I think I maybe got one hit. I didn't face him a lot, maybe a walk. You could probably, check the stats online, but it was really cool to be able to face him in the big leagues. This kid that I saw grow up, and super happy for him and the success that he had during his career.
Before we get out of here, let me go back to what I promised in the beginning. Tell us what you think of the 2023 rule changes. How do you think it's impacting on the game?
I love all of them. I think I think they're 10 years too late. When games started creeping well over 3 hours, we should have figured something out. The pace of play really needed fixed. So I love the pitch clock. I love the shift. Think about every other sport. Certain people have to be in certain positions, right? There's illegal defense in basketball. You can't double team. You can't stay in. You can't stay in the lane for more than 3 seconds. There's these different rules in football, right? You got to have 7 men on the line. You got to line up in certain eligible receivers. There is an alignment in baseball that creates a crisp game, that creates a good game. There's a reason that we had the positions for 100 years. What the shift did is it totally threw positions, out of the way, and said, I'm just going to load everybody up where, I think the ball is going to go. And you know what? Yeah, it would have helped me. It would have helped, a lot of the left-handed hitters that I knew. But I just really hope that it makes baseball a better game. And I think we're seeing more defense right now. I think we're seeing guys put the ball in play more. And, I think those two, the bigger bases aren't really a big deal to me. I mean, it's fine. But I think the pitch clock and banning the shift are huge.
I hear you. Yeah. I think that we who are around the game, you're not hearing a lot of negative comments, aside from Joe Madden, who invented the shift. So
of course,
that's the way that goes. So let's talk about the American League East, which is I looked at the MLB power rankings this morning, and all 5 AL East teams are ranked in the top 10. It's quite phenomenal. Talk about your Yankees. What do you think's going on with them?
Well, about 2 weeks ago, the Yankees were left for dead, and I don't think they've lost a game since. They're on quite a run here in May. What I try to tell everybody is, don't get too worked up about your team, one way or another, good or bad, until June 1st. On June 1st, I'm going to know who you are. So for example, the Orioles have had a great run. I mean, they've had a really nice, little run here. They lose 6 out of 7. They start looking a lot different, right? If they win 6 out of 7, they start looking a lot different. So on June 1st, I believe that 2 months, there's enough at-bats, there's enough innings, you get through some of the early season injuries. There's enough of a track record to see where your team is. So In a week and a half, I give you a much better read on where the Yankees and the Orioles are. But if I was a fan of either team, which I am, I'd be pretty happy with where they are, because while you can't win a division on May 22nd, you sure can lose a division by May 22nd. And they've both gotten off to good enough starts. They're healthy enough. I think the Orioles have maybe even a little bit more upside with their young players, because young players tend to get better. I certainly got better my rookie year as the season went on. And the Yankees being maybe a little bit more injury prone, they might have a little bit more downside. So it should be interesting to see how this thing shapes up over the next few months.
Right. Yeah, it's every baseball season, a new set of circumstances. But this year, with the rule changes, I think the game is healthier, and hopefully that will translate into long-term health care for our national pastime. And you've been a big part of that. And thank you so much for joining with us this evening, Mark Teixeira, and native Marylander and all-time great player. Now, listen, folks, before we get out of here, let me just tell you that we have 2 more speaker series events coming up on June the 22nd. Rock Kabako from Masson will interview the Orioles groundskeeper, Nicole Sherry, who and probably get into it about the left field wall at Camden Yards being pushed back a quarter of a mile so that the home run count goes down. And then on September 7th, we're going to interview Hall of Fame broadcaster John Miller. And I can't wait for that. John is still beloved, Mark, as I'm sure you know, by Oriole fans and baseball fans everywhere. He's a great guy. So thank all of you for joining in this evening. Tex, been great chatting with you, and maybe we'll be catching up with you pretty shortly here. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everyone.